So you've heard what this is all about. You've heard the main arguments. I'm now going to pass over for very short reflections. I'm going to actually start with Celine, if that's okay. And Celine's going to raise a number of issues on this, and then I'll pass to Inga, and then we'll also then go up to wider discussion.
Thank you very much. Oxfam was actually founded in 1942 to provide food relief to Greece when it was hit by the blockade of Allied forces. And while our focus has naturally focused since this period to the world's poorest country, we find ourselves in the situation today where we have to be watching our back and say, oh, the house is burning in Europe too. And if you look at what's going on in the G20 countries, 14 countries out of 18 for which statistics is available see deeply and quite big levels of inequality rising recently. And if you look at the UK, for instance, we're particularly worried about the spending cuts and how they're placing a disproportionate burden on the poor segments of the population. According to our research, 70% of the burden of the benefits cuts announced in 2010 will be borne by poor women. As was mentioned by the panelists, we also are quite concerned because of the impact that austerity will have on developing countries. I mean, already in 2010, we produced some research that showed that 56 low-income countries were $65 billion worse off as the result of the crisis in rich countries and had been forced to cut back on health, education, and support to poor farmers. And last year, what did we saw? For the first time, we saw in about a decade, we saw a global aid cut happening. And unfortunately, given where the debate is at, we might see a prolonged reduction in aid levels. And obviously, a prolonged depression in the Eurozone would cost LDCs billions in lost trade and investment. So that's why we're here. That's why we supported the publication of this booklet and helped disseminate it. We're really delighted with the interest it has generated in the the blogosphere. And also on our website, as was mentioned by Richard Jolly, the booklet was downloaded 430 times during the month of May, so a very successful document already. We're also encouraged by the progress of the Robin Hood tax campaign. It really shows that ideas that were once viewed as completely marginal and unsellable can become mainstream, provided that you use your political thinking as part of it. And FTT is now backed by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Vatican, 1,000 economists, Bill Gates, and even the European Commission says that it could have a positive on growth. So we hope that the same will happen with the measures that are contained in the booklet. To finish on a slightly critical note and a challenge back to the speakers, I think there's one thing that the booklet is silent about is environmental sustainability. And it mirrors the relative indifference that is surrounding right now the negotiations on climate change and the Rio +20 summit. I attended the Bonn negotiations 2 weeks ago, and the only good news that there was around is that because of austerity and slow growth, some countries who have done nothing for climate change have actually seen their emission path grow slower than the business as usual. The bad news is that right now the political debate is all centered about what is the quickest and most effective way to return to business as usual, both in terms of consumption and production patterns. And the problem is that we do not have another decade to lose. We can't, we might be able to give Greece a debt holiday, but we can't write off ecological debt. And so the panel, I would ask the panel how they see what could be done so that the recovery period puts us on the right track. Because if we fail to do so, the famous Keynesian phrase, in the long term we're all dead, might take a whole different meaning. Thank you.